Hi, I'm Chris Spizak, and this is the Words You Should Know podcast. A few stolen minutes out of your day to talk words and communication, because our daily lives are surrounded by the evolution of and the influence of words. Forget the grammar police. There is so much more to this conversation. And as a reminder, a free download of fiction editing cheat sheets, family story writing references, and business communication tips are all available on my website, getagriponyourgrammar.com. Welcome to episode number 38, where we'll talk about thesauruses, or thesauri. What is the plural of this word? And the fascinating history of these reference books that often aren't even in alphabetical order. Right, the alphabet's not the only way to categorize your subject matter after all. But first, here's the latest in word, language, and writing news. So this might not be a story on language per se, but amid all of the coronavirus talk about lockdowns, this was a story that caught my eye. Did you hear the one about the venomous spider loose in between the stacks of books at the Hogwarts? Nope, that's not right. At the University of Michigan Library. Seriously, this is a temporary closure that I think almost everybody can get behind. And to set the record straight, it wasn't one, nor two, but 3 venomous Mediterranean recluse spiders. And of course, for notes on venomous versus poisonous, see the Words You Should Know podcast episode 22, once also known as season 2, episode 10. To quote from ABC News, the Mediterranean recluse hitchhikes with people throughout the world and has been found in 22 states. They like caves and can be found in basements and boiler rooms. Story prompt? Nightmare prompt. Spider guards to the words preserved within the hollowed walls of academia? Yikes. Anyhow, moving on. In other communications news, journalist/data scientist Ben Blatt recently published the findings of his statistical analysis of storytelling, looking into great works of literature from John Steinbeck to Charles Dickens, to Jane Austen, to Toni Morrison, to Salman Rushdie, to Amy Tan, and beyond. And also contemporary bestsellers and even fan fiction. In short, it was a project to examine the writing advice one hears for powerful storytelling and communications of all sorts. Avoid adverbs and stick to more powerful verbs. Don't use too many exclamation points. Begin with short, direct sentences. And starting with the weather, whether in an email or a chapter, doesn't really accomplish anything but stalling the point. So Blatt was off, using a programming language called Python and a set of tools called the Natural Language Toolkit. What did he find? Not only that Agatha Christie's most common words were inquest, alibi, and frightful, and that Mark Twain's were hearted, shucks, and Satan. I mean, how Mark Twain is that? But also that Stephen King and many more who might be considered the greats of literature are with him when he says he avoids those adverbs. You can find more details in my show notes, of course. Oh, I could spend so much more time with these findings, and believe me, personally, I will. But I'll move into the meat of our episode. Oh, look, more history and analysis of how we use our language. I would say just kidding, but I'm not. That's what the show's all about, right? In today's English language history and trivia, whether you use it for your writing or for your crossword puzzles, it's hard to argue against the power of this language tool. First things first, what is the plural of this word? Thesauri? Thesauruses. Who else is imagining some sort of dinosaur right now? Now, if you're using dinosaurs as your model to answer this question, you won't be completely wrong. But then again, if you're using an octopus or cactus as your model, you wouldn't be completely wrong either. Wait, you were looking for one answer to this question? The answer is that the plural of thesaurus is accepted to be either thesauri, Thesauri, or thesauruses, Thesaurus. Historically, following the Latin rules, thesauri was the standard, but modern English has evolved to include thesauruses not only as a casual or non-standard form, but as a standard form in its own right. Now, thesauruses comes from the Greek word that means both treasure and storehouse. I'm sure the wordsmiths among you might find that a particularly perfect association. Roget's Thesaurus was first published in 1852 and hasn't been out of print since. Why is this a big deal? Let's talk it out. Peter Mark Roget was a Renaissance man of his time. Not only did this guy love chess, beekeeping, and kaleidoscopes, but he was also a practicing physician, even for a time serving as the physician to the Spanish embassy. He counted among his friends Samuel Taylor Coleridge and poet laureate William Wordsworth. He was a part of the discovery that nitrous oxide could be used as an anesthetic, the creation of the London sewage system, and the development of the film industry, among many other pursuits. So really, if you've ever played the game where someone questions you if you could have dinner with any figure from history, I'd argue that Dr. Peter Mark Roget should maybe be on your list of considerations. What I find especially fascinating about him, though, is that while he had an incredibly hard life in terms of his family's mental health and his own father dying when he was only 4 years old, young Peter coped by making lists, by creating order. And by the time he was 26 years old, he was working on what he called a reverse dictionary, a list of synonyms for when the definitions are known, but similar words are needed. Yes, this was the Thesaurus, before it ever gained its official name. But it was indeed Roget who gave it this title, the treasure house, the Thesaurus. Earlier linguists had used this term referring to Latin or Greek dictionaries in the 1500s, but Roget gets credit for this transition and this revolution in wordsmithing and this crossword puzzles. It was his love of diverse disciplines, his endless curiosity about the world, and his desire for order, classification, and bettering oneself that led to the invention of the Thesaurus. And after his own death, Roget's Thesaurus became a family project of sorts, with both his son and grandson continuing the effort. Fun Thesaurus facts. Roget's first Thesaurus was arranged by category, not by alphabetical order. Because who says alphabetical order is the only way of organizing research books? Side note, I'm in the middle of a really good book on this subject right now, and I'll likely be returning to alphabetical order in a future episode. Thesaurus fun fact number 2. The original 1852 title was Dr. Roget's Thesaurus of English Words and Phrases classified and arranged to facilitate the expression of ideas and assist in literary composition. Whew! Mouthful, but a transformative mouthful. Fun fact number 3. While Roget began this pursuit in his 20s, his career didn't allow for him to finish it until he retired. Roget was 73 when it was first published, but he was active in multiple revisions and future editions until his death at 91 years old in 1869. And our last fun fact. While Roget's is the first modern English thesaurus, the concept dates back to ancient Greece, specifically a work called On Synonyms by the Greek historian and grammarian Philo of Byblos, published circa the year 100. And a Sanskrit grammarian and poet from ancient India published a thesaurus known as the Treasury of Amara in what was likely the 600s. This Sanskrit tome is especially intriguing to me because it was published not as a vocabulary list, not in alphabetical order, but as a long poem. How cool is that? I also have a list of thesaurus jokes in my show notes because, well, why not? Thank you for that, Reader's Digest. And let's turn to our language challenge. So if I started this episode with a question, what is the plural of thesaurus? Let's make today's language challenge another question about plural forms. What is the plural of loaf, as in a loaf of bread? Too easy? Maybe. But type it out. Spell check won't help you. The answers, as always, can be found on my website at getagriponyourgrammar.com. Closing with my personal update. May I give a shout out to all of the writing partners out there? Now, what do I mean by partner? I'm not talking about co-writers especially, though those type of partners are awesome too. I'm talking about beta readers, critique partners, writing groups, and all of the partners writers have in their lives helping them and cheering them on. I know this is a big bucket of folks, but bear with me. I think, as I mentioned last time, I have a project that I've been thinking about for the past year, but not quite taking action on. For the past month or so, I've been really going deep into research and planning about how I could tackle this beast of a project that I'm kind of getting excited about tackling. Yes, that's what we as writers do. We tackle beasts, of course, right? Right? But having sounding boards for bouncing ideas off of is really just priceless. Yes, my literary agent is one of these sounding boards, but there are a number of others in the mix, and they rock. So if you are a supporter of writers, go you. If you are a writer, this pursuit does not have to be lonely. Dream work makes the team work. Okay, that might be bordering on cliche these days, and honestly, I'm getting a bit sick of the phrase, let's see if I can do better. There's simply power when we work together. Because in those moments, our individual and community pursuits inch their ways closer toward becoming reality. Better? Now this works well in the end. Writers need support. Sometimes this comes from people. Sometimes it comes from Thesauri or thesauruses. It definitely doesn't come from spiders chasing folks out of libraries. I'm sure any data analysis could agree with that. Are you curious or confused about the words you use every day? For more information on language news, trivia, tips, and explorations, I invite you to sign up for my monthly newsletter at getagriponyourgrammar.com. That's also a great place for free downloads and to learn more about my books, Get a Grip on Your Grammar, the Novel Editing Workbook, and the Family Story Workbook. Thank you so much to those of you who have taken the time to review or rate this podcast. And if you haven't, why don't you head over to wherever you listen and do so? I'm grateful for it. And as always, I invite you to share your latest writing updates or insights with me. I love hearing from you. Again, connect at getagriponyourgrammar.com. Until next time, words, language, communication. We've got this.